Hello, my name is Martin Upton, long-term activist in disability, and today I'm involved with organising the general election 2016 from a DFI disability point of view. And I was absolutely delighted with our day today. The number of people that showed up, their interest, and despite how poor and how bad weather conditions were, they came from floods, etc. throughout the country. So well done and thank you. And the fact, it wasn't just that they showed up, they were really present and interested and very engaging. And it was a very kind of well organised today, so I obviously have to thank the team that did that, not least of all Laura, Eli, Ray, and of course Jason and Graham. So in that sense, the time, and it showed as well that by putting a little bit of time and thought into a day, that it's much easier and people are much clearer. So, but the exciting part for me was that people were delighted with the presentation, and they felt, that it had been very well thought out. And of course, that sends messages to so many people as well who weren't there, because people who were there will want to talk about it and want to share and so forth. But you'll see in this short podcast, what the day is about and all of that. But just for now, I want to remind ourselves of the 3 steps that we are involved in. One step is we have to get 1,500 stories up by, I think it's about the 14th, 15th of January. So I need to hear your story from you and from everybody else around your constituency. And remember, you might just have more than 1 or 5 stories in you, like where you feel that you've been left out, segregated, ignored because of your disability. And remember the catchphrase, folks, does this seem fair to you? Right, so if we get enough of that, you'll see of those stories. Then we have the book of evidence. And the book of evidence is that's what we're going to launch. And that's what's going to launch our campaign. So I want your story there multiplied by so many. And I want photographs of you, and if possible. And in some cases, we're going to video your story and upload it onto YouTube. And if you want that to happen for yours, just call us and we'll see what we can do.
My name is John Sutton. I'm Agency Director of Persuasion Republic, and for the past 2.5 to 3 months I've been working on the Disable Inequality campaign for DFI.
I'm Alan Archibald. I'm a senior copywriter with Persuasion Republic, and I've been spending the last 2.5 months exploring an election campaign for disability generation as well.
When we were hired at the end of September, early October, we were asked to do 3 things really. The primary one was to develop campaign research that would give us clear insights as to what kind of messages would work for the campaign. We were told that the overall objective of the campaign was to put disability firmly into the next role for government. We wanted to call for significant new investment by the new government in the area of disability, and we were to devise a strategy that would work best for the DFI affiliate and their membership.
So we did a lot of research with focus groups, talking to the general public, and the whole idea was to try and build a campaign that would somehow or other break new ground that would move away from traditional campaigns which were all about individual issues, specific issues. So we've devised this campaign that isn't about any one issue, but is about the sort of what the underlying principle behind all issues, which is this sense of inequality, the fact that people with living with disabilities are treated unfairly. So we've established Disable Inequality, which asks one simple question. For every issue, whether it's employment issues or access issues or financial issues or medical care issues, the basic question of does that seem fair to you? Because there are so many inequalities out there.
And we know from the research that we did that the closer we can bring people to the closer, the more connections you can make between them and people living with disabilities, the better. So the central hook is to collect the biggest book of evidence, the biggest number of stories around with people living with disability that has ever been collected before. So this will be the first time this is being done. So our book of evidence is the central kind of theme of the campaign.
It's about the scale of it, it's about the number. It's staggering figures that there are 600,000 people living in Ireland with a disability. And if you add one person, one family member, one carer, one friend, one something to that, it suddenly becomes 1.2 million, which is the biggest constituency in the country by a mile.
And we've got a campaign that has three simple steps. One, collect the stories, and we're calling that mobilise the base. Two, when we have the stories collected, we need to launch nationally. So we're proposing that there's a rally in Dublin in mid-January, and it would be a march to end inequality for people living with disabilities. We've got a campaign then in the last kind of 3-4 weeks, or last 2 weeks of the campaign. We're calling it the 13 days countdown to the election day. Once we know when that is, we're going to focus on messaging around the 13%. And we're hoping that if we can pull off these 3 steps, that we will mobilise more people than ever before to get behind candidates who support people living with disabilities and significant change. And within that, we're calling for a full ministry. So it's never been called for before, it's never been delivered before, so that's pretty unique.
Also central to this campaign is this website. I assume this is where this video will sit. It's about collecting all the stories of disability and inequality on this website. This becomes a sort of living, breathing book of evidence, and then we'll produce the actual book near the last week.
I'm the new community development worker for Dublin South Wicklow. Part of my role as well is to help out with the election campaign for 2016 with DFI. So my role in that is to try and get people with disabilities mobilised, the grassroots, the activists that are out there on disability issues, to get them out to have their voices heard before the general election and to speak to candidates on the issues that are affecting them. So DFI will be there to help people with that as well, and there's a number of different ways that people can get involved. So the first way that people can get involved is to just tell their story. So I know people will be hearing an awful lot about that today, just the Disable Inequality website, how they can upload their stories in whatever format they feel comfortable with. So that can be written in a couple of 100 words, it can be a short tweet with the hashtag Disable Inequality, it can be a sign language video if you're a sign language user. It's whatever you're comfortable with, and we'll have people there to support you to record that or to get your thoughts down on paper if necessary. Another way to get involved is to just join the network. So we're hoping to put together a network of people, people with disabilities and their families across the 40 constituencies in Ireland, so that in every constituency somebody will be speaking on disability issues and talking to candidates and trying to get the message out there. So if you want to become part of that network, the centre point for that is DFI, and you can contact your local DFI support officer or myself here in the office, and we can link you up with some people in your local area so that you can get involved in the network.
Hi, my name is Allister O Donovan and I am Research and Policy Assistant here at the Disability Federation of Ireland. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of my role as part of the Disabled Inequality Network. And just a quick recap of what my role was at the initial network meeting on Saturday the 5th of December. So a really important part, and actually the critical part of the Disabled Inequality campaign, is that the voice of people with disabilities and their family members is at the forefront of that campaign. And that is what Disabled Inequality is all about, is making sure that people with disabilities' voice is heard. So it was really positive to see at the meeting on Saturday that we had an absolute range of people with disabilities, family members, and their supporters participating on the day. And we had people from all over Ireland, from Wexford to Limerick, and there was a diverse sort of range of disability groups represented as well. So reflecting on that, my role on the day was to come up in consultation with all the members that were there that day to develop a memorandum of understanding. So this memorandum of understanding would lay out the roles and responsibilities of the network members, and it would also develop a relationship between the Disability Federation of Ireland and those involved in the Disabled Inequality Network. So that was my role on the day. So one of the things we just looked at was outlining exactly what the roles and responsibilities of each of the network members will be, considering that this group is being put together for a very specific amount of time, which is the general election, and also bearing in mind that we want individuals to keep their individual autonomy as well as their integrity as well. And as I mentioned, we really did have a diverse group of people there, and reflecting on that, I think, everyone there and each individual has their own agenda and has their own sort of main issues leading into the general election. Just for example, let's say someone living down in rural County Kerry, for them transport might be a huge issue. But let's say someone who lives in Tala, right beside the Lewis, maybe transport might be a huge issue for them. So it's really important, I think, as part of this network, for people to appreciate that, they are acting in their own individual capacity, and they're representing their own sort of views and interests, and they're not necessarily reflecting the views of the Disability Federation of Ireland. Saying that, it's really important that people express their ideas and their experience and their own personal story of living with disability in Ireland. And that is something that we want from the network. We want the network to share their experiences and their stories, particularly in a local area. So we're hoping, and Laura will have gone through this previously, that we will identify 5 key people in each constituency to be part of this network. So one thing that we want is people on the ground, and this was laid out in the Memorandum of Understanding, to be active on the ground on local issues, and for them to communicate with us here in DFI what are the local issues on the ground. Because this would be really beneficial for us to know exactly what are the key issues, down in Bantry and Cork, what are the key issues that are coming up there. But that communication works both ways. So also, being part of the network, you will be tapped into DFI, and we will keep you abreast of the wider Disabled Inequality election campaign and the wider national issues that are coming up.
So my name is Ray. I work for the Disability Federation of Ireland, and I was really working on the project in the months coming up to the meeting on the 5th. So I was meeting with advocates and self-advocates around the country, and really trying to get them to tell their story and really try and feed those stories into what was produced on the 5th. I suppose in terms of what I'd like people to take away from that meeting is a serious amount of energy and understanding that there's a big support network behind that project, and that it's an exciting project to be a part of, and it's very, very important. I quoted a person called Margaret Mead on Saturday, and Margaret Mead said that you should never doubt the capacity of small groups of dedicated citizens to change the world, because they're the only people that ever have changed the world. And I'm not saying that we can change the world, but we can change our world. We can change the small part of the world that we belong to. And I suppose through telling your own story, you can be a part of that change. I think you have to also be aware that 2016 is a massively important time for Ireland. We've got the centenary of the 1916 Rising, but we also have the first major election after what's being called Ireland's recovery. So people with disabilities really need to stand up and let the next government know, and let the current government know that they haven't really been part of that recovery, and that doesn't really seem fair, that they weren't part of that recovery, and that in order for Ireland to be said to have recovered, people with disabilities need to be a part of that. So yeah, definitely take some energy and some motivation and some momentum from the meeting on Saturday, and really try and become part of this pretty exciting project.